All right, so listen to this, okay? It sounds like something right out of a movie. We're talking hundreds of vials, and get this, they're full of super dangerous viruses.
Mm.
Just vanished. Like, poof,
Oh.
gone.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, right? From this high-security lab in Queensland, Australia. And the crazy part,
Sure.
this isn't, some made-up story. It's real.
It's a head scratcher for sure.
It really is. And it only came out, like everyone found out about it in August 2023, but it actually happened back in 2021.
Wow, so they just noticed now.
Yeah, wild, right? So today, we're going to dive deep into this whole thing.
Sounds good.
What happened, what kind of viruses are we even talking about here? And what are the risks, really? I mean, some of these viruses, you'd be surprised, are way deadlier than, let's say, COVID. We're talking fatality rates that are just through the roof.
Yeah, and that's not even the half of it. The whole thing about how the security breach even happened, that's a whole other can of worms. Was it like an accident, or did someone actually steal them?
Yeah, there are so many questions.
It's really fascinating, this whole thing.
So, to set the stage right, it all started with a freezer malfunctioning at this lab in Queensland. The Queensland Public Health Virology Laboratory, to be exact.
Right, right. And they had to move all these virus samples to another freezer, pretty quickly. And, well, somewhere along the way, things went a bit sideways.
Okay.
It seems like some paperwork got lost, misplaced, and wouldn't you know it, 323 vials of these really nasty viruses went missing right along with it.
323. That's a lot. It's not like a couple of test tubes got knocked over. This is like a serious breach, especially when you consider what kinds of viruses we're talking about here.
Oh, absolutely. It's not your average cold virus, that's for sure.
Right, we're talking Hendra virus,
Mhm.
Lyssavirus, and Hantavirus.
Yeah, these are the ones that would make even the most experienced scientists take a step back. Like, whoa, hold on a second.
Yeah, for sure. And just to break it down for our listeners, each of these viruses, they're not messing around. They can be really dangerous for people. Let's start with Hendra, for example.
Right, Hendra.
It's what's called a zoonotic virus, meaning it can jump from animals to humans.
Right, so it's not just spreading between people.
Exactly. And this one, it started in Australia, which is interesting considering where this whole lab thing went down.
Mm-hmm.
But the really scary part, it has a 57% fatality rate.
57%.
Wow. Yeah. To put that in perspective, that's over 100 times deadlier than COVID-19.
Yeah. I mean, those are some pretty stark numbers right there.
They really are. And I was reading about how these outbreaks, when they happen, it's not just devastating for the people who get sick, but it ripples out to their families.
Yeah, of course.
And even the vets and people who work with horses, the equine industry.
Right, it impacts a lot of different areas.
Yeah, it really shows how far-reaching something like this can be. Okay, so we got Hendra, then there's Lyssavirus, which is actually related to rabies.
Oh, okay, so in the same family as rabies.
Yeah, and just like rabies, Lyssavirus is no joke. Seriously. It's got a really high fatality rate, too. If someone gets infected, they need treatment fast if they want to survive.
And then there's Hantavirus, which is spread by rodents.
Right, so this one is interesting. Hantavirus can cause hantavirus pulmonary syndrome, or HPS.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
So it basically attacks your lungs, and it can get really serious, even leading to respiratory failure sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
The mortality rate for that one is about 38%.
Right, so still pretty high. It's
Right.
worth noting, though, that even though hantavirus is found in other parts of the world, there haven't been any confirmed cases of people actually catching it in Australia.
Oh, that's good, at least. But I mean, even with that little bit of good news, this whole situation is still pretty intense, right? We've got these missing vials, 3 potentially deadly viruses, and nobody even realized for 2 whole years.
It makes you wonder how something like that even happens. You said earlier that chucking these things in the regular trash would be a major no-no.
Oh, yeah, big violation of protocol.
So what are we thinking here? Someone just accidentally misplaced hundreds of vials. Or maybe they were destroyed, but someone forgot to update the records. Or is there more to this? Is there something we're missing here?
Right, what's the real story? We need to figure this out.
Well, that's what's got everyone scratching their heads. It's a real mystery. I mean, you just don't accidentally toss out vials full of deadly viruses.
No, I wouldn't think so. There's got to be strict rules about that.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. These labs, they have super strict protocols for handling and getting rid of this stuff. It'd be really strange for something like that to happen, especially with this many vials.
Yeah, 323 is a lot. So what are the authorities saying? Have they considered the possibility that someone might have stolen them? Or even worse, that someone's trying to, weaponize these viruses?
Yeah, it's a scary thought for sure. They haven't completely ruled anything out, but from what they've said publicly, they don't think they were stolen. At least not right now. There's no evidence to suggest that or that anyone's trying to use them for, anything bad. But I guess they're focusing more on figuring out what happened inside the lab itself.
Yeah, that makes sense. But even if there's no immediate danger to the public, this whole thing is still pretty freaky, right? I mean, 2 years? Nobody noticed for 2 years.
Mhm.
That's a long time for something like this to go under the radar.
Yeah, it really is. And it definitely raises some big questions about, like, the lab's security. How could this happen?
Right. It's a little unsettling.
It is. There was actually a similar thing that happened in the U.S. back in 2014 at the CDC.
Oh, really?
Yeah. They found some vials with smallpox in them from way back in the 1950s.
Smallpox. Wow.
Yeah. Turns out they were harmless, thank goodness, but still it caused a huge stir. They had to review all their safety procedures, really highlighted how important it is to keep track of everything in these labs.
It's hard to believe that kind of thing could happen in multiple labs in different countries even.
Yeah, it's a bit of a wake-up call, so it makes you wonder, like, what do these labs even do with these dangerous viruses? Why even keep them around?
Yeah, it seems pretty risky.
Oh, it is, definitely. But it's also really important work, you
No.
know? They do research on all sorts of viruses and other nasty stuff. Like,
Mm.
they're the ones who figure out how these things spread, how they affect people, and ultimately how to fight back,
Yeah.
Develop treatments and vaccines and stuff.
So it's like a necessary evil kind of thing.
Yeah, I guess you could say that. They need to study these viruses to protect us from them. But the risks, oh man, they're huge.
And this whole incident in Queensland just goes to show that, right, it really underscores how important transparency is and accountability. I mean, for it to take 2 years to even come out that this happened, that's
Well, it's not a good look.
not at all.
Yeah.
Transparency, it builds trust, When stuff like this happens, these research places, they need to be upfront with people. Tell them what's going on. If they
Right.
wait too long, people start losing faith.
Exactly. It just breeds suspicion, It makes people wonder what else is going on behind closed doors. Yeah, for sure. This whole deep dive has been pretty eye-opening, hasn't it? We've got this security breach, these super dangerous viruses, and now this whole issue of trust and transparency in scientific research.
It's a lot to take in.
It is. And we're not even done yet. I mean, this case is far from close.
Oh, right. The investigation is still going on.
Exactly. Lots of unanswered questions. We've only just scratched the surface here.
It's a little scary to think about. If something like this can just, fall through the cracks for 2 years, what else is out there? It's kind of unsettling.
Yeah, no kidding. Really makes you think, right? Like, about all the systems we have in place to prevent these kinds of things from happening. Are they really working as well as we think they are?
Right. I mean,
Yeah.
it's easy to assume these labs have it all under control,
Mm-hmm.
but clearly, even with all their fancy security, things can still slip through.
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to have, like, multiple layers of protection, not just one thing.
Right. So, backups upon backup.
Yeah, exactly. Things like keeping really good track of everything, doing regular checks and inspections, and just as importantly, being open and honest with the public,
That transparency thing again.
Yeah, if they want people to trust them, they got to show that they're doing everything they can to prevent this kind of stuff.
It's like that saying, what is it? Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair.
Oh, that's a good one.
This whole thing has definitely damaged people's trust, that's for sure. Be interesting to see what they do to try to fix it.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they respond. And it's not just the scientists, I think this is a wake-up call for all of us, really.
What do you mean?
Well, to be more aware of the risks,
Yeah.
to ask questions and to demand more transparency from the people who are supposed to be keeping us safe.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay, well, we've taken a pretty deep dive into this missing virus case today.
We have.
Explored the details of how it happened, learned about these super dangerous viruses,
Mhm.
and talked about the bigger picture, biosecurity, transparency, all that.
Right. It's been quite a journey.
It has. But now we want to hear from you, the listeners.
Yes, definitely. This might have happened in Australia, but these questions, they're relevant everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
What does this case tell us about how secure scientific research really is? What can we do to stop this from happening again? And how can we make sure these research places are more transparent?
We've laid it all out for you, the facts, the context, different perspectives. Now it's your turn to think about it, connect the dots, and come to your own conclusions.
And don't be afraid to ask the tough questions. Yes.
Exactly. Knowledge is power, after all. And that's a wrap on another deep dive. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and stay safe out there.